the grade 12 boarding is so incredible. The experiential education programming, and all of that kind of just allows you to think deeply about who you are as a person and then enter the world at the age of 18 with a really sound understanding of yourself and approaching new challenges and new communities in a really thoughtful way.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
I know that this is an answer that I'm sure a lot of people give, but it's so true for me, is that the community and the people were just everything for me. There were amazing academics, amazing extracurriculars, and all of that was just rooted in this community of people who really cared. And it never felt, even though you're surrounded by these people who have amazing goals and want to achieve so much and want to be so involved, it never felt competitive. It always felt so supportive. And there was this culture of being your authentic self and being yourself and accepting people for who they were. That just kind of underpinned everything. And that was an amazing thing. And in my grade 12 year, we were the prefect team. We decided to make our theme. There's always a theme for the year. So our theme was Keep It Real, which was based in this idea of being your authentic self and accepting others for who they were. And that just did so much for me. It built this confidence up that, I could always go anywhere and to any new community and be myself and find people that, I really connect with. And to go through high school in that way, in a way that's such a formative time, and to have that experience it just really built me up in a way that I felt like I could go and enter the so-called real world with this perspective of finding people that I really connected with and, really being myself. So the community was everything to me. I found mentors in the faculty that I still, talk to this day and seek counsel from to this day. Some of my best friends are, people from Appleby. And so the people in the community were truly everything for me. There's this quote I love that says, "You're an average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." And, if that's true, then Appleby is the perfect place to be, because you'll find incredible people. And if you become the average of 5, any of the 5 people there, I think you're in a pretty good place. Yeah, I think there's a couple things, even just from a strict programming point of view. I think there's some things that Appleby does that's really kind of ahead of the curve. We have this incredible experiential education program where many students, and I think they might even be working to make it all students, but a large majority of students participate in international trips, for example. So I had the opportunity to go to Thailand in grade 10 and to go to Mongolia in grade 11 over March break, and participate in Mongolia in particular was a service trip. So we spent so much time we were building a fence for a daycare that was meant for young children with developmental disabilities. So building this daycare, one day we would build the fence, and then the next day we would work with the kids. And that was rotating. We also taught English to high school students there. And it was just an amazing experience to kind of get out of your bubble for a little bit and see the world for what it is. So those experiences have been awesome. And then along that experiential education vein, there's also the Temagami trips. So Appleby has a place 6 hours north of Toronto called Temagami, and it's Rabbit Nose Island. And we go there in grade 10 in particular. It's a winter trip. So we built quincies, which are kind of these snow forts, and then you kind of dig out and I slept 2 nights in in that Quincy. And it's just a great way to bond with your peers and kind of, like I said, get out of your bubble, get out of the stress, get away from your phone and the stress that can come with that, and just kind of get to experience that. So that is awesome. And then the grade 12 boarding is another thing. So Appleby has mandatory grade 12 boarding, like I said, and that is something that I don't think is too common among other schools, but it is such a great way to, in your final year, just solidify your friendships and also prepare for university, because for most university experiences, you'll probably move away from home. And for a lot of students, that coupled with the new school, coupled with the new people, can be overwhelming. So if you can take away the fact that living away from home is new and just focus on those other new things like the new university, the new classes, new community, then that's one less thing you have to worry about and your parents have to worry about because you've done it before. And the great thing about being a local student who was in boarding was that I was still close, right? So it's like you kind of have the training wheels on for a little bit. You're living away from home, but you can go home on weekends, and if you really need to see your family, you go pop home for a dinner on a Wednesday night or something like that. So it's a great way to kind of get used to that and ease into the stress that can come with living alone. So that was great. So those are two things that I think are pretty cutting edge for Appleby, along with, like I said before, all of the community aspects. And then the academics also would be one more. I think the offerings are just so broad. I got to take economics, which isn't always offered in high schools. We have an international business program where the whole point of the course is for students to start a business, which isn't too common. We had law, along with your classics. I took AP Chem, AP Calc, and then we have teachers with PhDs who are experts in these fields and these subject matters, absolute experts and leading thought leaders in the field who are teaching you. So getting the opportunity to kind of absorb from them has been so formative for me and my own academic journey. Yeah, firstly, I would say it's a very accepting place. So someone who's really open to new experiences, always wanting to learn from others, always out there just looking to be open and grow and learn. Secondly, I think Appleby really does embrace change, which is something that you don't always see from institutions that are as old as Appleby, which was founded in 1911. But it's always looking for the next, way to change and grow as a community and as an institution. And that's something that I really got to see in my grade 12 year, serving as head prefect. I got to really work with the administration in a way that I hadn't gotten to do previously, and see the way that they think about the school and the future of the school. It's pretty incredible the way that they're always thinking 5 years, 10 years in advance. And because of that, I think Appleby has a way of always kind of being on the cutting edge of what's next. I think they have goals for making it even more accessible through financial aid. They have goals to grow the experiential education program. And these are all things that I got to see and I was pretty impressed by, and really influenced the way I think about change and growth, even on a personal level, and being open to that growth. And then lastly, it is a very diverse community, and diverse in a very deep way. It's diverse with perspectives, experiences, cultures, backgrounds, identities. And because of that, you just get to always bounce ideas off of others who grew up in a very different way from you, or see things very differently. And because of that, you really get to grow into yourself and your views and your opinions in a much more thoughtful way. So those are three that really come to mind for sure. And then lastly, they would be the person who's always like, "Hey, hi, how's it going?" Because that's what the hallways were like. You walk through the hallways at Appleby, and it was just a myriad of hellos and "How are you?" and people really wanting to make sure that you're doing okay. And when I talk about the support systems, that's what it really was like. Yeah, that's a really good question because it really was a diverse place, and is a diverse place with so many different perspectives and interests. And one thing that definitely comes to mind would be that so many of my peers were passionate about something, and there wasn't a lot of kind of um, just not caring about the world, and which is totally fine if that's someone's perspective, but it just you didn't see that a lot. It was people who really felt passionate about their future, about the world, about current events, and that it's hard for that not to be infectious. It really grows on you to find your passion. And wow, like everyone is so interested and passionate about something. I wonder, what mine are. So that's something that I really found. Um, and what a great way to grow up, in a community like that where people are interested in global affairs, and people who know that they want to go into health side and create, something. I'm not in STEM right now, but something, to help the future of the human body, or someone who wants to be like a leading economist, or change the way the legal system or the criminal justice system works. There are so many people with these complex interests and passions, and that really does grow on you. And it made for such incredible discussions in an academic setting as well. I remember in my law class, in particular, Canadian and international law, we had these amazing discussions. Sometimes our teacher would just let us run with it, and he was awesome, and he would just let us go, and he would we had content to get through that day, but he would just let us take 10 minutes and have a real discussion about how what we're learning affects the real world, especially like things like legal realism. How is the law really being implemented in a real way in the world, and things like that. So it was just awesome. And in English classes in particular, we have something called Harkness discussions. So we have these Harkness tables, which are these round ovular tables. And the idea was that when you're sitting there, you can see everyone else. You're not in like a lecture style room. You're in a room where everyone else is within your sight, everyone's facial expressions, and what they're saying, you could see them. And that made for some really incredible discussions as well about the literature that we were reading, and whatever else we were discussing. So one that definitely comes to mind would be the idea of being a leader of character. This is something where if you spend a couple days on Appleby's campus, you'll hear that phrase, being a leader of character. What does it mean to have leadership with your character? And I think the word leader is something that means something different to whoever you would be speaking with. Some people see it as the person who's leading the charge at the front of the pack and always has the loudest voice, but I don't think that was the way that Appleby saw what it meant to be a leader. It's something that being a leader of character means having your own morals that you stick to, and kind of leading by example. And that was something you hear. We go to chapel a couple times a week, and there's always an hour long chapel on Fridays. At least when I was there, that was how it worked. And chapel, it wasn't meant to be a particularly religious experience, but it was more so a place where you could get outside of your head and whatever stresses you may be feeling that day, and just reflect and think about these greater questions of morals and ethics, and what it means to be yourself, and what it means to be a leader of character, and all of these bigger questions. And we have amazing people who lead that programming, and we also have multi-faith services or interfaith services where you hear about different religions and the way different cultures conceptualize these questions as well. So I think that is a great piece of programming at Appleby, where you can really reflect on these things. And that's where I came to a lot of conclusions about my own morals and what I'm grounded in, and some of those questions. So being a leader of character is something that really came up quite a bit. And everyone comes to that in their own way. what are the things that I want to lead on? Where do I want to be an example for peers and for friends? But it really came down to, for me, that authenticity piece that we've talked about before. When I hear something that, doesn't sit right with me, making sure to speak up about it, and not being afraid to be open about my interests and my passions and my viewpoints on things. And that's kind of how I came to an understanding of being a leader of character. So I like that one as well, because it's not saying these are the values that you should have. It's saying, here's something that we think could be helpful, and how do you want to come to your own conclusion on doing that? So for me personally, I was pretty surprised by just the sheer amount of offerings and ways that you could get involved. We had so many clubs, and coming from a school where we only had a few, and I was, like I said, in all of them, I think. I remember in grade 6, I would split my lunch time into like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So I could go to like all, 3 of the or 4 of the clubs that I was in or whatever. Whereas at Appleby, there's no way you could be in everything. There were just so many offerings. And I really found my home in a few. I loved cross country. So I did that right until my grade 12 year. And I just loved it. It was a way that I could really ground myself. And I just loved, the thoughts and the processing that came when I was running, and the community there. I also really loved my involvement in War Child Canada. So we were supporting, War Child through fundraising and awareness raising. And then the prefect community was really, really awesome, having the opportunity to lead kind of the culture of the student body and some of the programming. But everyone finds their involvement in different ways. And the way that everyone is so involved was pretty surprising. And then secondly, and this is one that I mentioned before as well, but the fact that it never really did feel competitive. It was always people working towards these greater goals, but then supporting each other in them. And there was never a feeling like, you had to hide what you were feeling. People would talk very openly about any stresses they may have, or if they're nervous about a test or nervous about a sports competition or something like that. There was never a feeling of, oh, I have to hide this in order to appear a certain way. It was always very open. And like I said, people in the hallways would ask, how are you doing? And if you say good, they'd be like, really, how are you really doing? I know you seem stressed. Is there anything I can do to help? And I think our guidance program did a lot for that. My guidance counselor was incredible. And we had weekly or bi-weekly meetings, and we would just talk about how I'm doing, how I'm processing, any challenges I'm having academically or elsewhere. So that really helped it to feel less competitive and much more supportive, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it was really, really formative for me, and in a couple of ways. I think, firstly, like I said, just that willingness to throw myself into a community, because I did that at Appleby and loved it, and just wanted to spend more and more time on campus because of how it made me feel when I was there. So that, definitely translated to my experiences at Harvard. And right when I got onto campus and arrived in Boston, I remember just thinking, I just want to throw myself into this experience now. And as much as I honestly was pretty sad to be leaving Appleby, because it was just, really did become a second home for me. And it was sad to go. Even though I knew that hopefully I would really love this new community, it was sad to leave the old one behind. But what I found also is that you never really do leave it behind. I still keep in touch with so many of my peers there, and teachers and mentors. But when I did start at Harvard, my thinking was, I just want to fully invest myself into this new community and see how it goes. I was also the only one at this, going to this school from my high school. So I was like, I need to make friends quickly and meet a lot of people and get involved. And I did. I went to the extracurricular fair. during the first week of classes and signed up for like, everything. And then slowly filtered through and chose a few that I felt really meaningful about and really enjoyed my involvement in. And now that, I'm in my third year, I've gotten to really lead some of these clubs that I joined, 2 years ago, and really create the culture in those communities. So that's one that really just being able to throw myself in. And then academically, because that's a big part of any academic institution you're at, of course, that's the main part. So getting really confident in my abilities academically at Appleby, coming from the teachers that I had and the support systems and support structures in place, made me feel like I could take on the academic programming at Harvard and get really involved and invested, and also go up to my professors, even though they are literally leading their fields, being able to just go up and talk to them after class and ask questions. And I think there was a confidence there that came from Appleby and my connections with faculty and teachers at Appleby. And they were always open to meeting after class, emailing. I'd email with the question at 10 o'clock at night when they definitely had they definitely did not need to respond to me, but they would. And they would say, if there's anything else, let me know. And they did that with everyone. They were so open and really wanted the best for you. I remember my AP Chem teacher would always, her thing was always that she was our coach, and we were her, I guess, players, and we were working towards the AP exam. And that was our like big tournament, our big game at the end. So that sports metaphor really made it feel like we were in it together with our coach, working towards this AP exam. And that translated into how I viewed academics at Harvard. It was never an individualistic thing. It was, I'm going to work with everyone, and we're gonna accomplish this together. So I think that was really formative for me as well from an academic lens. One thing for me was going to university and talking to students, other students and friends who had understandably very, very different high school experiences and did not feel the way that I felt about my high school, and felt just so happy to leave and to join a new community because the experience just wasn't for them. Maybe they felt ostracized, or like there wasn't enough offerings for them to feel fully satisfied with what they were doing, or had to really look in a lot of places outside of their high school to get the kind of academic stimulation that they were looking for, or extracurricular involvement that they were looking for. So now I look at my experience at Appleby with such a lens of gratitude, because I understand that that was not the norm. And when you're so invested in a place, it feels like, yeah, everyone loves their high school. Everyone is getting so much out of it. Everyone is having such a great experience. And just seeing that really wasn't the case, and understandably so. A lot of students had really challenging high school experiences. And not to say that couldn't happen at Appleby, but just my experience was so positive that I look at it now with really such a lens of gratitude. And that's why I'm always so willing to go back, and if there's anything I could ever do to help, like speak at a class, and they're still helping me. We're doing alumni calls all the time. We have these, especially during COVID, when it can feel so much like kind of you're in your own world and your house or your room or whatever, and having the opportunity to connect with other young alumni. We have these monthly calls, and we just check in. What is everyone up to? How is everyone feeling? And it's really genuine and vulnerable and awesome. And having that community 3 years later that I'm still going back to and relying on is a really unique thing. And I'm definitely not blind to that. I understand that that's not everyone's high school experience. So definitely, yeah, just a certain level of understanding that this was a really unique experience at Appleby, and it's a really unique place. So having that, gratitude looking back has been really, really neat. I would say if you're someone who really wants to be fully involved in a community and find a community of people who will support you regardless of what you're going through, and that you will learn from and grow from and have, conversations with that will really shape you and your future, then I think Appleby is an amazing place. So firstly, that would be my first reason, is just the community and the people and the mentors that you will find who think about, you know, life in such a meaningful way, and a way that you might have never considered. So that would be one. Secondly, would be, of course, it was such an academically stimulating environment, with peers who are doing these amazing things and writing, all these AP exams, and interested and doing research, and just having the opportunity to learn from those sorts of people and peers, as well as the faculty, like I mentioned, who are experts in their field and outside of class are doing these amazing things, academically, whether it's giving TED Talks or working towards their PhD, or whatever it may be. You're just always so academically stimulated. And then thirdly would be the opportunities, the extracurricular opportunities. No matter what you are interested in, there is something for you at Appleby. If you are interested in sports, if you're like an amazing volleyball player, there is something for you. The volleyball team is really competitive and does a lot of competitions, and you can join that at whatever level you're at. If you love service and volunteering and working with youth and youth empowerment, there's something for you. If you want to be a leader of culture and leading the student body and creating new and cutting edge programming, for Appleby itself, then there's something for you. And then, so that would be number three, but then kind of coupled with all those opportunities is the support systems in place. Because anytime that you're doing so much, there could be stress and there could be moments when you need extra support. And the great thing is that that support is there. There's a guidance program with many guidance counselors who are, their office doors are open. And if you just need to drop by and talk, or if you need help with getting an extension for an assignment, or if you're missing class because of, sports competitions, there's support for you. And that support kind of underpins all of the programming. And that's necessary because with all of that programming and people like me and many others who want to get so involved and want to do so much, that support is definitely can be necessary and can be so helpful. So those would be three of the main ones for sure. But then, like I said, with the grade 12 boarding is so incredible, the experiential education programming, and all of that kind of just allows you to think deeply about who you are as a person and then enter the world at the age of 18 with a really sound understanding of yourself and approaching new challenges and new communities in a really thoughtful way. I think my parents would be definitely proof of people who are very grateful with the decision that they were a part of making for me and my sister. They definitely saw the way it impacted us and our development. And they always say, like, choosing Appleby was one of the best decisions that we made as a family, just because of the way that they saw how my sister and I really grew into ourselves and found friendships that are still lasting to this day. And that's not always the norm. And I think that they were just so grateful. So let me know if there's parents out there that want to talk to someone. My parents will always do that. But I would say that find comfort in the fact that, your son or daughter is going to really come into themselves and find themselves in a real meaningful way, find passions, find friendships, find mentors, in a community where there is so much support, and it's really the perfect place to go through these really formative years. I was at Appleby from age of 12 to the age of 18. And those are some pretty formative years. So I would say that it is the perfect place to grow up and find a second home. Yeah, I would say to firstly just be kind to yourself, because with any new community that you step into, there's going to be an adjustment period, and I found that at Harvard for sure. It took me a couple months to really feel like my feet were standing steadily on the ground, and I understood what I was doing, and I had friends, and I had communities that I could rely on. And that was at the age of 18, you know? So at the age of 12 or 14 or 15, be kind to yourself and just allow yourself that time to adjust. Um, the person who led the prefect team at Appleby, and someone who's really my mentor to this day, had this graphic that was pinned to her office, and it said there was a circle that said your comfort zone, and then there was a circle next to it that said where the magic happens. So the idea that you really have to step outside of your comfort zone in order to for the magic to happen. And I would say just allow yourself to do that. Allow yourself the adjustment time, the ability to be out of your comfort zone, and also don't be afraid to kind of throw yourself in and see what happens. Join new things. When I was in grade 7, I had never sang, acted, danced, any of those things, and I joined the musical. I actually got cast as the lead role, which was pretty crazy to me. I was shocked. I was expecting, I would have been very happy with the background role, but it was great, and I got to perform and sing, and it was awesome. And running, for example, I had never ran a day in my life, and it's mandatory to choose a co-curricular every term. So I was looking at the list. I'm like, what should I join? And my dad said, I think you could be a runner. Why don't you try it? And I was like, really? I don't know. I've never ran. And I still remember the first practice on that first day, we did half a kilometer, and I was like dead at the end. I was really exhausted. I was laying in the grass, like I couldn't do it anymore, but I pushed through. And the next day I went back, worked my way up. And then throughout my time at Appleby, I ran 5 of the walkathons, which are half a marathon, 21 kilometers, and everyone participates. You can walk or run, and I ran 5 of them, and I would love it. My time was getting faster every year, and it was great. So throw yourself in and find new passions. If you don't like something, no worries. Try something else, because these are really the years when you have so much ability to explore and find yourself and find your passion. So I would say throw yourself in and see what happens, and just be kind to that adjustment period.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.